course, any talk of nuclear weapons is of concern and we should take very seriously. But I think we should recognize it's not a huge surprise that it's to some degree been kind of potentially on the cards for some time. A view that President Putin might have put them in there last year, but didn't, held back, potentially to get people talking to his narrative at a moment of his choosing. And we know that he likes to do a little bit of nuclear saber rattling intermittently, just because he knows it plays to Western fears. I think most analysts would say this doesn't change any real calculus. It doesn't fundamentally alter
Yes.
his nuclear ability to reach out and use those weapons, nor does it increase the likelihood that he would use them.
Is it the case then that were he minded to use a tactical nuclear weapon, which is obviously of a lesser order than a strategic weapon, but a tactical nuclear weapon can be the size of the weapon used against Hiroshima in World War II, potentially. Does that mean it can as easily be deployed from other territory than from Belarus?
Exactly that. So it doesn't really increase his capability, increase his reach of these weapons. So it's more a strategic act. Arguably, it's more about bringing Belarus even deeper into his orbit. So we shouldn't discount it. It's significant. I understand it's the first time nuclear weapons have been deployed off Russian soil since the 1990s. So it is significant as a strategic move, geopolitical move. But as it pertains to, the threat of use of tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine, it's more posturing than substance.
Yes, it's also reported, Rupert, and I know you're a general, not an admiral, but it's reported that the Russians could have nuclear super torpedoes in the Pacific by 2024. Now, I'll admit to you, I'm not entirely sure what a nuclear super torpedo is, but it sounds pretty scary.
Yes, absolutely. Any ex admirals out there, I forgive me. Yeah, no, I mean it is potentially a very significant capability. It's been on the cards for a few years. What is a nuclear torpedo? In your and my layman terms, it's a really, really big torpedo. It can travel very fast, so it's quite hard to stop. It goes very deep, which again makes it hard to stop. And it's got a very long range, about 10,000 kilometers range.
10,000 kilometers.
10,000 kilometers. And that's I understand it. And so what it does, rather than being a sort of typical torpedo that is to some degree fire and forget, people describe it as a cross between a torpedo and a sort of subsurface drone. So it can maneuver onto its objective. So it's potentially really significant, as I'll defer to admirals on this one. But it is potentially very significant. I guess I'd say one thing though. There's a reason why it's being put out into the public domain at the moment. Maybe it links to the Chinese visit recently, but it's a very, very advanced piece of technology, clearly. And what Russia, I think, have demonstrated over the last year or so is not all their technology is that reliable. So it's interesting. I'm no doubt intelligence analysts have been poring over this extensively. But I think probably a long way to go yet.
Right. Now, there was an argument among strategic and military experts about the value to Ukraine, or for that matter to Russia, of the bloody battle for Bakhmut, which is still continuing at great cost of life on both sides. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been of the view that, as you suggest, I mean, Bakhmut itself is of no real significance as a bit of geography, as a city, but it's become very significant because it now has so almost mythical status. So nobody wants to blink, nobody wants to lose that battle. But it's also become significant because the Ukrainians are using it to really impose very, very significant casualties on the Russian forces there. Particularly, we know the Wagner Group, and many of them we know this. The ex-criminals have been let out of jail, but Ukraine are using it to just blood the Russians, and of course, Ukraine is paying a high price for that, but not nearly as high a price as the Russians. So I think the Ukrainians, whilst it looks though they're kind of surrounded on three sides, the general thinking at the moment is that some of the potency has gone out of the Russian fight in Bakhmut, and to some degree it feels though their fight has culminated there. We'll see.
Right, we know that Russia doesn't place any particular significance or value on the lives of its forces, but are they simply taking the bait here then?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think they've been drawn into the trap because they to use the phrase, they needed a win. Because things weren't exactly going their way on the battlefield, and whilst President Putin will never give any quarter, he'll never suggest he needed a win. It's pretty clear that they were struggling. Every time there was a battle, they were losing, and so Bakhmut was their opportunity to regain a little bit of face, get a bit of momentum going, and they've struggled with it. But they've done that classic Russian Putin thing: just double down, double down, double down, and hope that eventually you bludgeon your way through. In this case, to get a little win in Bakhmut. But the Ukrainians, my God, they're resilient. They're not going to give that win to Putin easily.
Well, I'm John Pienaar, and if you found that interesting, we are here each day, Monday to Thursday, 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock on Drive, and from 7 till 8, Pienaar and Friends, where we discuss the big stories of the day each day on Times Radio.